Hello, I'm Jason Black, creator of the documentary 7 a.m. People have asked why I did this documentary. Well, the answer is very simple. We live in a world that runs on money. That's all. But the problem that black people have is that we are the poorest people in the world. And there's a simple reason for that. Because we do not have our own businesses. Now, we've been fed a lie for the last 150 years since we were migrated off of the plantations. The lie that we have been fed is that money doesn't matter, not where we're concerned. Now, for everybody else, money matters, but for black people, there's something more important than money. That's what we've been told. We've been told that we need to focus on education. We need to focus on civil rights. We need to focus on integration or our lack of proper religion. That's what we have been told. But the simple truth is that if you don't own businesses, you're not a producer. In reality, you're not truly a consumer. You're also the one being consumed. You've been bamboozled. So let's talk about what happened to you. First off, you were fed the lie of integration. Integration is a lie because it is a national fraud that encourages us to say to ourselves that the problem with black people is that white people do not like us, and that if we could only get them to like us, we will no longer be poor and they will no longer try to brutalize or victimize us. And this is completely wrong.
The issue should have never been integration. Why would it be integration in the first place? That was something that was cocked up by the black overclass, as I said in the 1930s, called universality at that time. Then later on, it morphed into being integration. It should never been the issue. Never been the issue. And that's unforgivable for black leadership in this country to allow people to bamboozle them into debating the issue of social integration.
You should instead be focusing on building your own economy. That way, it doesn't matter whether people like you or whether they hate you, they will not be able to harm you. And the goal should be ensuring your survival, not ensuring your popularity. When you have power, wealth, and influence, you are impervious to people's like or dislike of you. Secondly, the problem with integration is that it encouraged us to commit economic suicide. We gave up all of our businesses. We abandoned our own economy. Black people used to have our own economy, but we no longer do because we were so fixated and obsessive chasing white acceptance that we took the Faustian bargain that we needed to abandon our own economy to gain their acceptance. Well, we did that, and it certainly got us more jobs, didn't it? But amazingly enough, our unemployment numbers never moved, and our poverty rate never moved. Gaining integration did not make us a more powerful people. Gaining integration simply made us an integrated people. And that's it. Next up is civil rights. That's the other great lie that we've been sold, is that we needed to gain civil rights. The simple truth is that poor people have no rights. None at all.
And Nick said, well, we got civil rights. You got a civil rights right now to go down to a hotel, to the richest hotel, and go get the most expensive room and have lobster fed to you every day. But if you don't have the money, you cannot do it.
And the spate of attacks on unarmed black men by police has clearly shown you that the police and the prosecutors are making it clear that they don't have to respect your civil rights. They can pass all the civil rights laws they want to. The court system and the police are ignoring those rights because they know that you have no means by which to punish them. Because the only way you can punish somebody is economically. And to some of the people out there feeding themselves some of these revolutionary lies, I'll deal with that in a few moments as well. One of the more insidious tactics that's been used against us is the black clergy. This has been particularly difficult because over a century ago, white supremacy, after we migrated off of the plantations, latched on to a strategy. The Constitution of the United States protects your religion. So that was the only place where black people could gather together unmolested. We were protected by law. So white supremacy said if we cannot attack them from the outside, let's attack them from the inside. They went on a campaign to buy off every single one of our black pastors in America and tell him that he can get acceptance. He can come to City Hall. He can come to the balls. He can show up at all these places and become a prominent black citizen. Prominent defined as accepted even within white circles, accepted in quotations, so long as he only preaches a specific type of gospel and doesn't get off into any talk of black people becoming self-sufficient. As long as you preach to your people pie in the sky and heaven in the hereafter to be happy slaves toiling away at our corporate plantations, then you will remain a good citizen. But if you don't do that, you'll see our dollars going to somebody else. We'll support somebody else's soup kitchen and somebody else's daycare at another church who does decide to play ball. And guess what? Your black clergy, which has been the birthplace of many of your so-called civil rights leaders, they abandoned any talk whatsoever of black people owning our own economy. If you hadn't noticed, your black preachers and pastors on television and making millions of dollars on their books, do you notice that they talk about money all right, but they tell you that the way to get money is to pray for it? They never tell you that you should pray to God to help you to build a business. They tell you pray to God that money will fall from the sky. And absent money magically appearing from the sky, they tell you pray to God for a job from the very people who are oppressing you. You see, that century-old investment that they made into the black clergy has paid off in dividends. So why is it that black people have accepted this? There's two main reasons that are motivating it. Number one, black people are afraid. The simple truth of the matter is that white supremacy broke black people. It broke our will to fight. Like a boxer who realizes he can't beat his opponent, black people are no longer trying to win the game. Black people are no longer even trying to survive. They're just trying to exist at this point, and hoping that today will not be the day that Darren Wilson or Daniel Pantaleo shows up for them. So we teach our children to keep their heads down, to bow down, don't make any waves, and hopefully staying poor and impoverished will prevent you from being a target. We've given up on the idea that our children should have a life worth living. We simply told them exist. The second reason is because black people have developed a social psychological attachment to the dominant society. Ever since slavery ended, at least on the plantation level, black people have become psychologically fixated on getting white society to say the words. We want them to physically say the words, "You are our equal." And as long as they don't say that, we go through every day feeling like just half a person. And that's why we don't build our own businesses. Because you see, if we had our own economy, we would no longer have to get validation from the dominant society. And we want that validation. Like a spiteful ex-wife who wants to see her husband admit that his life has gone to pot without her. We want to hear white society admit that we really were their equals and that they were really wrong for what they did.
The reason you integrated is because black people, post-traumatic slavery disorder, going back to the antebellum days, have always felt inferior to white people because they conditioned us to believe so. And we couldn't wait to prove to them and to ourselves how equal we were. And so when the opportunity to integrate came, our low racial self-esteem dictated that we vacated what we had and integrate what he had because we had always wanted his acceptance.
No wonder they don't give it to us. Because as long as they don't say that, they keep us chasing that carrot on a stick. And all we keep getting is the stick. Furthermore, validation is something that comes from within. It doesn't come from without. But black people are still waiting for that external validation. And we are the poorest people on the planet. And that brings us to a more deadly phase. Because you see, poor people have to be utilized for a purpose. And once you no longer can be used for that purpose, you are discarded. Because we live in a world that runs on money. And what that means is only the producers, the business owners, those are the essential citizens. Everybody else is a consumer, or worse, getting consumed. And when you are an obsolete workforce, as black people are today, that leaves you the prime candidate to simply be consumed. And the fact that now the court system has officially weighed in, that black blood is without consequences, and the police now have a free pass to execute us on sight without any punishment, and the prosecutors and the courts will back them up. Ladies and gentlemen, we have entered a soft Holocaust. And the reason we're in the middle of that is because we are poor people. Yes, they hate us because we're black, but they're able to victimize us because we're poor. And we've made up every excuse in the world for why we don't have to stand up and fight them. As I said before, we're afraid. So we take a look at Asians and Arabs and say, well, those people have some type of unnatural unity with each other that allows them to stick together. But sticking together is not what has helped them. They came over here with one goal: to build an economy. Because even though white supremacists may not like them, they're unable to harm them because they didn't get their money from white supremacy. They make their own. Lastly, I want to address you. That's right, you, the person listening to me right now. Because of all the atrocities that have been committed, there's one that sticks out more than any other. You see, wealth is generational. Wealth is defined as something that is passed down from one generation to another. Well, poverty is generational too. And black people have made a decision that we don't care if we pass poverty down to our children. It's actually commonplace to hear black parents say, I don't have to leave anything to my children because nobody left anything to me. We've become so spiteful and hateful that we are now the chief tools of sabotage against our own children. We hate our own children to the point that we will deliberately sit and look them in the eyes and say, I'm passing down nothing to you. You will go out into this world and fend for yourself like an orphan just dropped off on these shores. I have money. I have a job. I'm going to spend that on clothes and cars, and you will have to live a hand-to-mouth existence and get by however you get by.
Remember, the old heads, they want to ride all the way home on what they're getting. The old civil rights leaders, they're going to bust a grape for you all. The rappers that got money, they're not doing anything for you. Who's going to stand up for you, do anything? Show me one in the country to stand up for you.
We have adopted a culture of betrayal and treason against our own children. And the single greatest crime that a people can commit is to pass on a lesser world to their children than the one that they inherited. Today, the dollar is worth 1/20th what it was 80 years ago. And that is the dollar that we are telling our children, you should go out into the world and start at a 1/20th disadvantage to all these other people who have been passing down wealth for a century. We tell our children, go out into the world and start with nothing. Make it on your own. And most of you listening right now, if you're black, most of you are poor. And that was what your parents did to you. They betrayed you. They gave you nothing and sent you out into the world. We are having children without a purpose, because if you're not passing anything down, then what are you getting children for, other than to reproduce? We need power, and power in this world is gained one way, through your dollars. There are some people out there who have this fantasy, and black people are very good for resorting to make-believe. They have this fantasy that we can shoot our way out of this, so they get on the internet and pose with guns. Here's the problem with that type of idiocy. How are you going to go to war when you don't even make your own bullets? I'd like to call you now to come and see it. Opening January 17th and January 22nd in select cities around the country. I would like to invite you to come and see 7 a.m. Not so we can have a pity party. That's not what the documentary talks about, and that's not what it discusses. Not so we can sit up and talk about the problems, but so that we can finally address what is the solution. It is not your lack of proper religion. It's not your willingness to integrate. Brothers and sisters, it's about business. Come to our website, 7ammovie.com. That's 7ammovie.com. If you're black and broke, it's time to wake up.